What happened to your high school bully? I had two. One ended up in jail for selling meth and beating his girlfriend. Good riddance. The other one went to college and became a chemical engineer. He messaged me on Facebook a while back and apologized for being a douche in high school, which I accepted. Has a wife and a kid now. Seems to be doing good for himself, so I'm happy for him. Never really bullied me, but others he did. Always lived like no rules applied to him. Saw on the local news a couple years ago he got pulled over for something. Ended up in a high-speed chase. The cops did a pit maneuver and made him spin out. Dipshit pulls a gun and fires at the cops, who in turn shot up his car and him dead. My dentist told me a story about his bully. Just after he opened his practice, he made an emergency appointment because of a cracked tooth. The dentist recognized him, but the bully didn't. Bully got in the chair, dentist said open wide, and started examining him. Then he said, "You don't recognize me, do you?" Bully said no, the best he could with the dentist's tools in his mouth. "You used to bully me at school. You made my life hell, perfect timing." The bully apologized, and the dentist repaired his tooth. But imagine how he felt for those few seconds being absolutely powerless. Edit. This was in the UK in about 1992, when we didn't sue people for something that wasn't your fault. She was popular in high school until the day she got high off spice with her cousin and then stabbed her cousin to death. She's in jail now. Her family is broken and she swears up and down she did it because God told her to. To be honest, I feel completely horrible for her family. They don't deserve the social backlash and the heartache. He's part owner of an auto parts store I buy from. He's also the second baseman on my beer league softball team. My coach. One of my players said they had a guy to fill in for a tournament, so needing bodies I agreed. My heart sank when he came strutting up. My player introduced me to him and he said yes, Rothery, and I go way back. I made his life hell in high school. I don't think I'll be welcome to play, but thanks for the opportunity. He turned and started walking away, and I called him back over. Told him that if he's half as good as he was when we were teenagers, he's welcome to play. He immediately agreed, and after the first game, which we won by the mercy rule, he had a long chat with me in the beer gardens. We are good friends now, and he has a permanent spot on my team. And yes, he is still as good as he was on high school. I found him working the counter at Little Caesars Pizza about 10 years after graduation. He didn't recognize me, but he did call me sir. One became a super good friend once we hit 10th grade. The more sadistic one is dead, and another is in and out of jail. We had various scraps for much of middle school. I hated him. He was a racist creep hurling various insults at me for laughs. I was the only dark boy in a rural town and hopelessly small. He took pot shots whenever he could, being so much bigger than me. We finally had a classic schoolyard brawl after school late in the winter. Surrounded by a dozen or so boys egging us on, we fought. I won with nothing more than a hard shove onto the frozen ground. His backpack spilled open and all his books and papers went flying out onto the snow-covered field alongside his will to fight. He stumbled away in sobs. The jocks nicknamed me Rocky after that fight, and I felt vindicated and proud. Now when I think back all those years ago, my heart breaks for him in countless ways. He was molested repeatedly by his adoptive parents less than a block away from my own home. He was picked on by other kids as well. We were both outcasts in our own separate ways, but he suffered far worse than I could ever imagine. He ended up in juvie then, later, in prison. I wish I could take back that fateful afternoon. Everyone here is fighting for their lives, facing all kinds of darkness, begging for a little light. He was my bully in 9th grade, then I moved schools. From what I heard, he spent most of high school dating emotionally unstable girls and then having messy breakups, all while pining after this one girl who would never give him the time of day. Also, I found out way later from my so, who knew him well growing up, that he pretty much spent most of his life living in the shadow of his older brother, who was apparently a huge athletic prodigy or something. He ended up going to Drexel for college, I think. I didn't have a high school bully, but I did have bullies in elementary and middle school. The elementary school ones eventually realized it was stupid, and we ended up being okay acquaintances. They probably went on to have normal lives. The middle school one, I don't know, but last I saw him, he was just as bitter as always. Saw him for the first time last month, since like 10 years ago. It was in a club and he remembered my fave. Since we always used to fight back he bought me a drink, and we had a conversation about the old days. He's a damn gentleman now. He became a Disney star after his success on Vine, made millions of dollars, and now lives in a mansion in Cali. You might have heard of him, and his younger brother, Logan and Jake Paul. He apologized to me one day, a few months before I moved away. Told me that he felt bad about how he treated me, and said that it must have really hurt to be called those names. I told him I forgave him, that we were all just stupid kids. A week later he shot himself in the head in his parents' front yard. I skipped the funeral. I'm not sure why, whether I was scared or tried to play it cool, but there is literally nothing I regret more than missing that. He bullied me in elementary school, when we were very young. Then he changed schools and I didn't see him for many years and pretty much forgot about him. One day my close friend, who has a history of dating very aggressive, temperamental, and macho types tells me she met someone, and it turns out to be him. They date for a while, she is very unhappy. Tells me drunkenly more than once that she plans to leave him. Then she gets pregnant, so they stay together for a while. I get to know him a little better, and he's still kind of a douche, but I think he has a good heart, and just has lots of anger and mental health issues. But he actually seems like he's a pretty good dad. One night my other friend calls me to tell his body was found on the train tracks. He had killed himself. Eventually find out later that my friend had broken up with him, and they were being evicted from their apartment. I guess he just gave up. He didn't know where else to go. It's sad, and it's too bad he didn't get the help he so obviously needed. I was the bully to some people. If the bully has a soul, they regret everything they did like I have. Sometimes the shame has made me reach out and apologize to former victims with wildly varying results. Middle school bully got stuck in a loveless marriage and reached out to me 2 years ago. Not to apologize, but to try to sell me some health pyramid scheme bullshit. Usually I'd politely decline, but for her I listed why the product sucked and explained why she was getting screwed over by selling it. I was pretty rude, but she wouldn't take no for an answer. Went so far as to mention how I wasn't looking to gain weight, as from her picture I assumed that's what it did. For a minute I felt bad, but this chick always got on me for being small, and how it was unhealthy when she was obviously suffering physically from too much weight. I think she was trying to use her old ways to bully me into buying. Guessing she didn't realize I'm not 12 and have learned to stand up for myself. He lost his legs in a bike accident shortly after we left school. A few years later I heard he has committed suicide. Bullied me relentlessly for being gay. 20 years later ran into him and his husband in Provincetown, Massachusetts. Killed himself last year. Was weird. BC he actually was super active in the gay community in his city, a major city, and by all accounts, was a good guy. Pro tip for gay kids, your homophobic bully wants to duck you. He became a singer of regional Mexican music and has had moderate success, at least here in town. Go figure. She got fat meanwhile I lost my teenage extra 15 pounds from running and hiking a lot. So now she's the fat one, and I'm the thin one. It feels really weird because I remember being a bit bigger while she was skinny and popular. Also, she suddenly doesn't remember being a total cunt to me and thinks we were really good friends. Duck off, Christy. She dated one of my primary school bullies. He raped her. She got pregnant. Now she's raising his child alone. I feel sorry for her. She might be horrible, but one deserves that. 1 year after high school, found shot execution style. He thought he could be some kind of drug lord, but he was wrong. I wasn't bullied, but I did notice a bunch of the bullies became police officers. I'm not even joking. Hopefully at peace with himself, painting watercolors to make a living, having a candlelit dinner with his betrothed, and making amends with the world, all whilst living under an asbestos roof in North Korea. Not proud of it at all, but I was a bit of a bully to this guy Justin when I was a freshman in high school. It wasn't cool to be gay back then, and he wasn't completely open about it as he is now. I was a bit of a duck, and I said things I will never repeat. He moved my junior year and I didn't hear from him for a few years. One day I found him on Facebook and apologized for ever judging him and told him how bad I felt for how I treated him. He forgave me immediately and never said another word about it. 1010 great guy, and I still feel terrible for past me. He ended up matching with me on Tinder and didn't recognize it was me. I had dyed my hair, gotten piercings and lost a lot of weight, wanted to hook up, and I asked if he recognized me. He felt stupid as duck, and it was a petty win for me. Her and her brother had a very shitty home life. Their mother was mentally ill and their dad was a gypsy who only dropped by to see them a couple of times a year. I was friends with her and her brother for a few years at secondary school, though we grew apart later on. But while others were scared shitless by her because of our early friendship, she never picked on me and would sometimes listen to me as a voice of reason. She left school at 16, got into a lot of trouble with the law, and I heard that she ended up doing some time in jail. When she came out, she turned her life around, went back to school to get the qualifications she needed, then went to nursing college. Last I heard, she was a mental health nurse. Not a bully per se, but my girlfriend's mom hated me, made my life miserable and caused her daughter to break up with me. I was driving back to university and buying gas. Her mom was working at the gas station. She saw me and looked like she'd seen a ghost. I smiled, put the cash in the counter, and walked out not saying a word. Her daughter became a single mother just like she was. I became an engineer. She ended up being pregnant at around 17 and her boyfriend, father of the child, dumped her. And honestly, I feel really sorry for her, like really. Similar story to mine. I was bullied in middle school. My bully was in 8th grade and I was in 6th. Then she went to high school and I didn't see her for 2 years. When I finally arrived in high school in 9th grade, guess what junior I see who is pregnant? She was embarrassed when she saw me. Worse of all, she's black. And her boyfriend was black. The child came out mixed race. I guess I was the asshole in high school. Enormous ego. Thought I was hot shit cause I played sports. Had my fair share of all that shit went out the window when I graduated and went to college. In HS, people worshipped you for being a asshole. In college, if you were a ass, people just wouldn't associate them with you. Had a huge reality check and matured mellowed a lot since TH. I've apologized to a handful of people since. Realized my assholeness was from a lingering insecurity that I had. The worst one graduated from college and has gone on to become extremely successful in investment banking. He was working for one of the largest investment firms at first, now has his own company. I'm not in touch with him, but come from a very small town and people like to talk about the small town boy that made it big. He was ducking ruthless as a bully and downright mean. He thinks he is God's gift to women when he is completely gross. I'm convinced he is a sociopath and has managed to get this successful by doing illegal things. I Google him and the company name every so often to see if he has been arrested. She's going to community college with a 14% graduation rate. I know because me too. My high school bully was myself. I beat myself up a lot and had super low self-esteem. I was in a dark place. I've gotten better about loving myself since TH. Lead singer of a band I love. Life is strange. There was a girl who very kind to me when I started attending a new school, but she immediately began a targeted bullying campaign against me when I beat her at a spelling bee. It sounds like a ridiculous reason, but apparently her academic standing was very important to her and I made her feel really threatened. She and her mother, who was a teacher at the school, bullied me until my parents decided that I should just switch to another school. However, she didn't end up doing anything interesting, even though her reputation for intelligence was so important to her. She just went to one of those mediocre Christian universities, married a dude at 20, began popping out children immediately, gained a bunch of weight, and now looks exactly like her horrible mother. I'll admit that I'm not as nice of a person as I could be, and I do get some amusement about her looking 15 years older than me and doing nothing with those good grades she cared so much about. I had 3, J, Z, and C for anonymity because I was an in club running, a cappella singing, stage crew assisting, D&D playing, video game obsessed, weebubinid back th I still am, but I was then too, and I didn't have nearly the charisma I do now. J was the jock bully, liked to hit me with lacrosse sticks, brag that he was going to own an airplane someday while I'd grow up to be a nothing because my family wasn't old money. He died in a private airplane crash along with basically his entire family, except his estranged brother. Z was the druggy bully, general asshole with a crappy childhood. Tried to force me to snort cocaine more than once. Tried to sexually assault my best female friend at the time. Came out as bisexual, went to a gay-only party, died of a drug overdose in the bathroom, which is how his parents found out he did drugs, and was B. C was an ideological rival more than a bully. Conventionally attractive, dumb as a brick, but from a wealthy line of surgeons. His future was all but decided for him. He liked to pick on me for having useless skills like being a bookworm and an artist, and prided himself on his athletic skills, perfect health, and romantic prowess above all else, shoving these in my face and calling me a loser. He is currently a fat unemployed druggy undergrad dropout whose father abandoned their family out of shame, then had a very public affair from whence a child was born, who he gave the same name as C, in order to try again. So yeah, I'm doing okay. I didn't have a high school bully. One of my middle school bullies, however, went to another school after the year she had made me a target. When we were in high school together, she apologized out of the blue for what she'd done in the past. Turns out she had selected another target in this other school, and a teacher witnessed the bullying in class and ripped her a new asshole in front of the class. She said it was humiliating and helped her understand what she was doing to people. We were never friends, but we got along okay after that. She got pregnant and married at 18, divorced at 20. Saw her at a club after the divorce, and she was trying to get attention from loads of older men, like 50-year-olds. That was 5 years ago. I think she hasn't really done anything since, apart from being a single SAHM. Nothing wrong with that, but she wanted to go into social work at school, so it's a shame for her.